Welcome to Jonah chapter 4. We are on day 1. And friends, the drama continues. I will say that today gets a little bit ouchy, maybe not quite as feel good as last week. So here we are, Jonah chapter 4, verse 1. But it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was angry. And he prayed to the Lord and said, "O Lord, is not this what I said when I was yet in my country? That is why I made haste to flee to Tarshish. For I knew that you are a gracious God and merciful, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and relenting from disaster." Pretty interesting, huh? All right, so asking that who question. Well, we are back to Jonah. The narrative circles back, the camera circles back, and the focus is on Jonah. And what's up with him? How is Jonah doing, friends? Here's a how question. Well, the narrative says he is exceedingly displeased and angry. So I did put those words in my keyword column. To be displeased. This one surprised me. It's not just to have some kind of displeasure. Intertwined with this word is evil, like it's being displeased with evil behavior. And then it's exceedingly to be, what did I just say? To be displeased with evil behavior. So exceedingly means great. It means remarkable. It means out of the ordinary in degree, in magnitude, in effect. So like Jonah is, he's upset. And really, I don't even have words to say how upset he is. And yeah, wow. Well, we'll keep going to unpack this. Talk about angry, all right? He is so angry. He feels an aversion for something. And in this case, it almost appears to be that he feels an aversion to God. He certainly feels an aversion to God in that God relented. So I asked that why question. Why is Jonah exceedingly displeased and angry? It just says it, but it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was angry. So we have to understand what that pronoun represents. It seems to be that Jonah is angry at God, that God relented. That's what we see at the end of his prayer here. He knows God. He knows God is merciful, gracious, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, also relenting from disaster. So we know that the people of Nineveh, they repented. They turned from their evil ways. All of this should be exciting. And I was excited about it. So is this a bad thing? Like, why would Jonah be angry at God or be angry over this situation? How can Jonah be angry that God is merciful and gracious and slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness and relenting from disaster? I mean, Jonah himself has been a recipient of all of this from God, right? Jonah has received second chances from God himself. He's enjoyed God's mercy and grace. He's enjoyed being a recipient that God would relent from disaster, right? Jonah was drowning. His life was ebbing away, fainting away when God relented from the disaster that Jonah was facing. The Ninevites were as good as dead, but God, in his grace and his mercy, has relented and let go of his anger. So the question remains, and I just kind of put like a big uh-oh here, what's going on? We have to stop and ponder. Why is it that Jonah does not want God's mercy, God's grace, God to relent from his anger, relent from destroying the people of Nineveh. Why? Why is Jonah angry over that? Like, is Jonah thinking right? Is his heart, and I ask this, is his heart united with God's heart for the people of Nineveh? And it's pretty clear. The answer is nope. His heart is not united with God's heart, that God would show grace and mercy and relent from disaster for the people of Nineveh. And rather, it appears that Jonah wants the enemy, his enemy, and the enemy of the Israelites to be utterly destroyed. He wants them, he wants retribution for the evil that they have done, for their evil behavior. It's as if he wants God to take vengeance on them. He is not the least bit interested in God showing grace and mercy and relenting from disaster. Oh my goodness, friends. How are we to think about this? Jonah gives us quite an example of not wanting to extend grace to our enemies. And this ought to stop us in our tracks. Like, here is a place to pause and do a serious heart check. Isn't it like us? Don't we want God's vengeance upon the enemy? Do we really want God's mercy and grace shown upon those who are evil or who have done evil, and particularly those who have done evil that directly affects us in some way? But we see God's heart, and Jonah knows God's heart. Like, Jonah gives a beautiful description of who God is. God, you are gracious, you are merciful, you are slow to anger, you are abounding in steadfast love, you relent from disaster. So Jonah knows this, and he prays this to God. But he's not quite aligned with God's heart, right? Which we see. Jesus gives us a beautiful picture in Luke 6:36. Be merciful even as your Father is merciful. Be merciful even as your Father is merciful. So friends, here's a heart check for us. And we need to take a good look. Are we being merciful as our Father is merciful? Are we truly seeking to have a heart united with God's heart? Or do we just want God's mercy and God's grace for ourselves? Are we being stingy? Are we being stingy with God's mercy and his grace? I think for application today, Jonah is exceedingly displeased. He's exceedingly angry. He thinks it appears that he thinks this is even evil of God, that he would just relent from destroying the people of Nineveh, that he would let them go and extend grace to them. But what does Jonah do? He prays to God. I think this is an excellent example of what we are to do when we are angry, when we are displeased. We go to the Lord. He turns to Yahweh and he just lays out his heart. Like, he speaks very honestly to God about his anger, about his displeasure. Friends, that's important. When we lay our hearts before God, God sees, he knows if our hearts are right before him, and he will show us. Like, I have a sneaking suspicion God's going to show Jonah what is in his heart. All right, friends, be merciful, even as your Father is merciful. Oh, Lord, have mercy on us. Help us unite our hearts with your heart for our enemies. Lord, help us to pray for your mercy and grace, even for our enemies. Yes, unite our hearts with yours.